Welcome to Episode 45, Assign PCI Roles and Measurable Accountability Organization-Wide. The promise is crystal clear ownership that accelerates work and satisfies assessor expectations without adding ceremony for its own sake. On the Payment Card Industry Professional (PCIP) exam, you are rewarded for turning vague somebody should duties into named people, time-bound decisions, and artifacts that prove controls are operating. Accountability is not a poster, it is a map where every control has a responsible owner, a backup, an approver, a cadence for evidence refresh, and a place where disputes are resolved on a clock. When ownership is crisp, assessments become confirmation instead of archaeology. Timelines shorten because questions have destinations, and risk discussions land with the person who is allowed to say yes or no. The assessor's lens follows a simple chain: who is accountable, what they must produce, when it is due, and where the proof lives. Build that chain and speed and assurance rise together.
The backbone of that chain is a role model that everyone understands at a glance. A responsibility assignment matrix, RACI, makes roles explicit for each payment card industry data security standard, PCI DSS, requirement. Who is responsible for performing the work, who is accountable for the outcome, who must be consulted because their domain is touched, and who is informed so communication loops close. The RACI is not theory, it drives tickets, approvals, and escalations. Accountable executive is a named person who can accept residual risk. Control owner is a named person who ensures procedures run and artifacts stay fresh. Approver is the authority bound to sign when risk shifts. Evidence custodian curates locations, formats, and retention rules so assessors can sample without spelunking. When the matrix is published, disagreements deflate because the lanes are visible. For the exam, prefer answers that move from the security team to a specific role with a deliverable and a date, because that is what turns policy into performance. Coverage only counts if it is complete, so map every requirement to a named owner, a backup, and a governance forum where blockers die. Each PCI DSS control should carry a row that lists the primary owner, the designated alternate who can act during absence, and the standing meeting where decisions about that control are made and recorded. That forum might be a security steering group, a change advisory board, or a quarterly compliance review. The important part is that it exists on a schedule, has quorum definitions, and keeps minutes that tie decisions to tickets. A control without a forum becomes drift. A forum without minutes becomes memory. The assessor will sample this chain by picking a requirement and asking for the last two decisions that affected it, the artifacts that changed, and the dates they changed. If those three items are findable in minutes, accountability is alive. If not, the map is decorative. Coordination needs a conductor. A program lead anchors the calendar, integrates the moving parts, and keeps the narrative coherent for both executives and assessors. This is not simply a project manager. It is a named owner for assessments, artifacts, deadlines, and communications who can escalate across departments. The program lead maintains the artifact index, tracks assessor requests, assigns due dates, and publishes weekly readiness notes that show what is complete, what is at risk, and what decisions are pending. Their output is evidence of orchestration: an intake log for assessor asks, a delivery tracker with links to folders and tickets, a dependency list for items that require change windows, and a friendly summary sent to the accountable executives. On the exam, you will see scenarios where progress stalls because everyone was working on it. The winning answer inserts a program lead whose job is to convert everyone into names, owners, and dates tied to artifacts. Data lives in places and flows between them, which means someone must own the lines on the map. Designate cardholder data environment stewards and data custodians who are responsible for inventories, flows, and retention adherence. Stewards own boundaries. They maintain the list of systems and scope, the trust zones, and the connections that cross them. Custodians own the data objects and ensure collection, minimization, retention, and deletion match policy. The evidence that this exists is an updated inventory, a current data flow diagram with version and author, and a retention register for each dataset with next purge dates. When those documents drift, scope arguments swallow time. When they are current, segmentation tests focus, compensating controls are sized correctly, and reviewers can trace exactly where a given record can travel. The best exam choice treats data and its home as first-class citizens with named caretakers and renewal signals. Access and cryptography cut across everything, so assign specialists with documented competencies rather than generic security labels. Name access reviewers for each platform who certify quarterly that entitlements remain correct. Name key custodians who manage generation, rotation, escrow, and revocation. Name segmentation validators who plan, run, and store the proofs of isolation. Competence is not a slogan, it is a short profile. The training completed, the tools in scope, the sampling method used, and the sign-off authority. Then put those profiles where assessors can see them. When a question arises about a dormant account, you can point to the reviewer who missed it and the corrective action plan. When a key rotation lags, you can show who carries the key calendar and the date the reminder fired. On the exam, an answer that insists on named, qualified owners with sampling methods outperforms a broad security team will review every time. Escalation exists to convert delay into decision. Establish paths and service level agreements for exceptions, incidents, and urgent vendor issues so time does not vanish in polite emails. Each path should name the first approver, the fallback approver if the first is unavailable, the maximum response time, and the evidence that the decision happened. For exceptions, require a risk statement, a compensating control, an expiration date, and an executive signature. For incidents, specify isolation authority, notification thresholds, and the duty to preserve evidence. For vendor emergencies, define who can grant temporary access and how that access is recorded and reviewed afterward. If an assessor asks for the last 3 escalations and you can pull tickets that show request, approval, and expiry, your escalation is a control, not a hope. The exam rewards structures that compress delay while expanding proof. Accountability without measurement is theater, so link objectives to metrics that the owners recognize and the board can read. Completion rates for recurring obligations show whether the calendar is working. Audit findings closed demonstrate whether the organization learns. Time to evidence delivery signals whether artifacts are curated or improvised. Mean time to approve changes reveals whether governance is paced or clogged. Each metric should have an owner, a target, and a monthly review in a named forum. The map ties numbers to people, not to committees. If time to evidence spikes, the evidence custodian for that control explains why and proposes a fix, such as automating capture or simplifying folder structures. In the exam room, the best answer does not drown in dashboards. It selects a handful of metrics that change behavior and shows who owns each dial. Attestation turns "we think our control is running" into "I confirm it ran as designed." Require periodic attestations from owners, time-boxed and scoped to the controls they hold. An attestation is a short declaration: which procedures were executed during the period, where the artifacts live, whether exceptions exist, and what changed. It includes a date, a name, and a pointer to the sample set reviewed. A program lead can orchestrate this through a quarterly cadence, auto-generating forms with the right control IDs and evidence links. Assessors like attestations because they show awareness and ownership, not just raw output. On the exam, you will often prefer designs that add attestations over designs that rely on centralized discovery alone, because distributed responsibility shortens feedback loops and catches drift near the source. Roles only stick if they are woven into the company's people systems. Bake responsibilities into job descriptions, onboarding checklists, and performance reviews. A control owner should see PCI language in their role summary and have a first-month onboarding task that walks through the artifact library, the sampling method, and the forum where their control is governed. Performance reviews should include 1 or 2 measurable objectives tied to evidence quality and timeliness. Promotions should note how a candidate handled attestation accuracy or exception discipline. None of this is punitive. It is clarity about what work matters and how it is recognized. When people systems and compliance systems disagree, people systems win, so you must align them. The exam's assessor mindset looks for this alignment because it predicts durability under turnover and reorganization. Training earns its keep when it is targeted and short. Provide role-specific modules that cover scenario practice and evidence handling procedures for each owner type. Access reviewers learn to sample and document. Key custodians rehearse rotation and revocation artifacts. Data custodians practice a retention policy purge and evidence capture. Change approvers walk through a borderline case and practice writing a risk acceptance note that will age well in an assessment. Include a micro lesson on handling sensitive logs and screenshots so nothing accidental slips into tickets. Track completions and link them to the accountability map so an assessor can see not just that roles exist, but that the people in them have been trained to perform them. On the exam, the best answer ties training to artifacts and scenarios, not to annual slide decks alone. Executives and auditors will not read binders, so publish a one-page accountability map. This is a simple visual that lists the accountable executive, the program lead, the primary control categories with named owners, the forums with cadence, and the escalation channels with response times. It does not duplicate procedures, it points to them. A good map includes a legend for how to read control IDs and a short section on where artifacts live. When a reviewer arrives, hand them the map first. It sets context and reduces random walks through systems. Internally, the map also resolves who owns this without side chats. The presence of this page is a tell of maturity. Teams that can explain themselves cleanly usually control themselves cleanly. Organizations change, and accountability must keep up. Reevaluate assignments after reorganizations, technology shifts, acquisitions, or significant audit observations. Build a short trigger list that forces a refresh. New platform and scope, new payment flow, change in hosting provider, consolidation of a business unit, red audit finding on a control family. The program lead runs a 30-minute reassessment, proposes updated owners and forums, circulates the changes for acknowledgement, and updates the map and the role registry. Store the before and after with dates so assessors can see that ownership did not lag architecture by a year. In exam scenarios, you will favor answers that show ownership keeps pace with change, because stale maps are a leading indicator of control failure. Governance forums are where accountability breathes. Put the right people around a small table on a predictable cadence and give them a crisp agenda. Open risks needing decisions, metrics that moved, exceptions expiring, evidence freshness gaps, and cross-team dependencies. Publish the decisions the same day with ticket links and owners. A good forum is short, uses plain language, and respects time, because people return to meetings that move work forward. The program lead facilitates, the accountable executive closes stalemates, control owners ask for unblockers. Assessors will ask to see the last 3 decisions that affected a given control, and whether those choices landed as changes in systems and artifacts. The forum and the proof should match like 2 sides of one page. Accountability without documentation is brittle, so create a lightweight registry that ties all of this together. For each control, the registry lists the owner, backup, evidence location, last attestation, next attestation, metric owner, forum, and last 2 decisions. Keep it in a system with search and access control. Link it to tickets and repositories rather than copying content so it stays current with less effort. During assessments, the registry becomes the tour guide. A reviewer asks about a control, you open the row, and every answer is 1 click away. This is not bureaucracy, it is navigation. It also provides resilience during turnover, because the process knowledge is embedded in the registry rather than in inboxes. Finally, bring the model to life with a small, visible step that improves clarity this week. Update the accountability map and notify each owner of their upcoming deliverables with dates and artifact links. Send a short note that says what is due, where it should be placed, and which forum will review completion. Ask for a 1-line acknowledgement from each owner to confirm understanding. Then, at the next forum meeting, sample 3 items at random and read the evidence in the room. This simple sequence proves the map is not a poster, it is a working contract. It also trains the organization that ownership means outcomes and that outcomes are visible. Step back, and the pattern is consistent with every strong compliance posture you have studied. Clear ownership converts standards into work. Named backups convert vacations into continuity. Forums convert conflict into decisions. Attestations convert belief into statements. Artifacts convert statements into proof. Metrics convert motion into improvement. And refresh cycles convert change into currency. For the PCI exam, translate any scenario about who is responsible into this chain, and choose the answer that surfaces names, dates, and evidence.
Assessors do not grade passion, they grade traceability. Build a map that anyone can read, and the organization will move faster because fewer steps require rediscovery, fewer decisions wait in limbo, and fewer controls go stale in the shadows. A mature accountability system will feel calm rather than busy. People spend less time chasing answers and more time doing their part because interfaces are defined. When a control fails, the owner knows and the forum decides. When an artifact ages, the custodian refreshes. When an exception expires, the approver renews or ends it. When a new platform arrives, stewards redraw scope and custodians adjust retention. When access sprawls, reviewers prune and record. When keys come due, custodians rotate and publish digests. When metrics drift, owners report and tune. This is not management by slogan. It is the quiet rhythm of named roles doing named work on a cadence you can show. It is also what allows assessments to feel like guided tours rather than surprise inspections. Close by making the improvement specific and measurable. Today, refresh the one-page accountability map, reconfirm each owner and backup, and send a concise deliverables message with 3 items per role due in the next 30 days. 1 evidence update, 1 attestation, and 1 metric review. Log acknowledgements, attach the plan to the program tracker, and schedule a 10-minute sampling at the next governance forum to read completed artifacts aloud. That tiny loop embodies the assessor's expectation and the exam's logic: ownership, due dates, delivered proof, and a forum that checks. Crystal clear accountability is not a slogan you print, it is a sequence you run, and you can start it before the day ends. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.